You very much, NG, for reminding us that human capital must be at the center of all strategies by all African governments. If I could just ask that you please move the networking to the back of the room so that we can make space for the next panel that's coming up. Just to remind you of the speakers on that last panel, the moderator, NG Onyejekwe, founding partner of Canfluence, and the panelists were Bolaji Ogundare, Chris Ejeli, Lister Ahaiba, Uzo Nwagju, and Kofo Olanguju. So if I could just ask those of you who are participating in the next panel discussion, beyond exports, developing commercially viable gas markets, if you could just make your way over to the technical stage so that we can mic you up. So just a little bit of background. If you are listening, if I've got at least one or two pairs of ears listening to me, this next session is going to be sponsored by Energies. So we're going to look at how Africa possesses substantial natural gas. It represents about 8.8% of global reserves, so that's nearly 9%. So as a continent strives to achieve access to energy, industrial growth, and of course, economic diversification, the question we're asking is, what plans are there for effective monetization of this, particularly when it comes to domestic gas resources? That's very paramount. We're also going to look at the greater investments that are targeting gas production for exports. How do we ensure that African population is not left behind? Carrying on from that discussion that we just heard there, that people are key. I think MCs are kind of used to that. Sometimes you speak to yourself, right? And that's what's happening right now. If I could ask those of you who are at the back of the room, if you're coming in, please come in as noiselessly as you can. Pick a seat. Let's just get ready for the next panel. And those of you who are leaving, we're glad to have you here, but it is goodbye for now so that we can move on to the next conversation. Okay, so we'll try again. So the next panel discussion, it's titled Beyond Exports, Developing Commercially Viable Domestic Gas Markets. The moderator will be Gavin Thompson, who's the Vice Chairperson of Energy Europe, Middle East and Africa at Wood Mackenzie. The panelists will consist of Matthias Regas, CEO Energy. Those are the sponsors of this conversation. Gilles Paternas, I hope I'm pronouncing the surname correctly. I did try and find you, Gilles, and he's CEO of Rhino Resources. Ekechukwu Mba, Director, New Energy, Seplet Energy. And we're also going to be joined by Jerome Palais, LNG Business Development Manager, Total Energies, and Manuel Barros, who is the CEO, Gas and Renewable Energy Business Unit at Sonangol. If you're all mic'd up, may I please ask you to come forward so that we can get your panel off to a good start. It's the final, but I would say arguably the most important discussion. We're going to further this conversation about people and their role. So, ladies and gentlemen, if I could just ask you to give them a hearty, warm round of applause. Hopefully that'll bring them closer to the stage. Everybody needs a little bit of encouragement, no? Okay, so Gavin and the panelists will be closing the agenda. I think we've covered the whole gamut, so to speak, when we're talking about what this stage aims to achieve. If I could just ask Gavin, if you are mic'd up, and your panelists to please come to the forefront. Okay, you are making your way here. So they'll be looking at production for exports. How do we ensure that African population is not left behind? That's a question, and we'll also examine the strategies for developing domestic gas and supply chains, as well as small-scale LNG for cross-border trade. Gavin, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Shall you and I have a one-on-one?
We'll have a one-on-one, yeah.
Okay, so you'll be seated here while your panelists make their way here. And just a reminder to those of you who are participating that if you do want to network, engage with the panelists, you're more than welcome to do so. I won't chase you away from this because this is the last and final session. So you have full possession of this room after that. So we'll invite the panelists over. The session is due to end at 5 to 5, but I'll give you an extra 5 minutes. How about that? Good. All right, Gavin, let me hand over to you. And please do stay on stage for the photographer to take a picture of your panelists. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'll welcome the panelists up. These are surprisingly comfortable chairs for a panel. Not normally what you get. They also spin around, so just be aware that you may be moving a little bit. Right. If we can, yeah. Actually, so Kajowi, if you move one along.
So, Gavin, sorry, I did mention if you just look up there, the names are up on the screen, and everybody can just be seated according to that.
Okay, and we have an empty seat, which is Matthias's seat, but he is also the sponsor, so we are contractually obliged to make sure he arrives. And here he comes. So we are almost complete. There are some handheld mics just there, which you can use those. Okay. We good to go? Great. Okay, let's get started. Welcome, Matthias. Ladies and gentlemen, the final panel discussion of today, and a really important topic as we look into the development of commercially viable gas markets across Africa, and a really strong panel to discuss and to debate this as well. So I'll just very briefly introduce the panelists. Matheus Rigas, CEO of Energias. Next we have Gilles Batnache, COO of Rhino Resources. Next to Gilles is Okachuba, Director of New Energy at Seplat Energy. Penultimate panelist, Jérôme Palat, LNG Business Development Manager with Total Energies. And then finally, last but not least, Manuel Barros, Gas and Renewable Energy Business Unit with Sonangol. So such a key topic. Our MC was using that data point, around 9% of global gas reserves and discovered resource is here in Africa. But such a small percentage of that is being developed for use within the domestic markets. So how does Africa develop its domestic supply chains, its cross-border supply chains, and develop gas use as the transformative and accessible energy source, which we know that gas is around the world? And that's what we want to talk about. So, Matthias, I'm going to start with you. Energy and huge success in the Eastern Mediterranean, really building the portfolio across that region and developing, transporting, and selling gas into those markets. Two questions, really. First is what does it take to develop viable gas markets in the energy and experience? And the second, publicly, you have stated the interest in West Africa as a region for gas, and what is driving that?
Thank you, and apologies for being late. What does it take? It takes really one thing. It is a willingness to do things and rather than talk about things. And there are a number of occasions, a number of countries, a number of projects that we see with discovered, undeveloped resources that stay there for a number of reasons. We talked about the East Mediterranean and what you called our success story. We operate today 180,000 barrels equivalent. 80% of that is gas. In 2016, we went into Israel and we were asked to develop a field fast. We took over the field called Karish, 100%. No partners, very easy to take decisions. And in March of 2018, we took a final investment decision for a $2 billion project. All of the gas to the domestic market. No exports, no LNG, none of what is required in many other countries to do the business. In 2022, October 2022, we started production, 4 years with COVID in between. So I heard yesterday in the opening ceremony the great success of another development that we started at the same time that took 11 years to develop. And I was comparing with what it takes if you really want to do things. Coming back to your question, that is really what it takes. You need to be able to take decisions fast. You need to be able to raise money. We raised $1.7 billion for this development. And you asked about Africa and what is Energian doing in Africa. We do believe that the same story of the East Mediterranean, meaning discovered undeveloped resources that remain there for a number of reasons, and one of them is one of the majors, Total, Panel. It may not be the right size for them, and that's absolutely fine. And there are very few independents. I'm struggling to find one that can sit in front of a government and say, I have done it. I have built an FPSO, I've drilled the wells, I laid the pipelines, I brought the gas to market, I made it a reality, and it's operating. Today we're selling 700 million scuffs that FPSO, and it's working extremely well. So willingness to develop the asset, ability to move fast and take decisions very quickly without wasting too much time on unnecessary studies, low operating costs, and the right size operator for the right asset. Because there are some assets that are too big for the independents and some assets that are too small for the majors. That's where we come in.
And you have to have the right risk attitude. Right? I mean, EastMed is it's a tough neighborhood politically.
And unfortunately, God didn't put oil and gas in Switzerland. So wherever you go, there are problems. So in the EastMed, yes, I mean, there are rockets flying and drones, and we're in a war zone. We are in Egypt, we have other problems there, we don't get paid. We go to Italy, we have bureaucracy. You go to Greece, you have a lot of green issues. You come to South Africa, a lot of resources here, and it cannot be developed because of unions and green movements and inability to take decisions. There is no easy place in this world. So you have to be ready, yes, to take risks, and you have to be ready to find the solutions for those risks and work with people to get things done.
Good answer. Good answer. Gilles, it's great timing that you're here on this panel, because the question which I prepared for you was, as an independent, as a relative newcomer, what's your experience of what it takes to get E&P moving? And of course, you've announced discovery today, and so this isn't a hypothetical question. This is a real question of the progress you've made and the next steps you need to take. What does it take? Matthias talked about the right projects for the right size company, and in the view of Rhino Resources, what does it take?
Thank you very much. So actually, I absolutely agree with what you said, and it's the first time I meet you, so we didn't prepare anything. But I agree with what you're saying, that you need to have the right size discovery or the right size asset, right size company. What I believe on top of that is that when we are an independent and a small, we need to have actually resilience. You need to be able to wait the right time to be able to do development, not in terms of waiting for development or even for going for the discovery. And you mentioned something. You mentioned, Matthias, you're saying like, well, we are in Egypt and it's very difficult for us to be able to get paid, right? And when you are a medium-sized company, for right now I would say more a small-sized company, it's more having resilience and being able to go through that and still having vision that there is light at the end of the tunnel. You will be able to go there. You need to bring people along with you, and the only way to do that is to build a very, very strong partnership. So it's partnership with obviously your JV, it's partnership with the government, and then it's a partnership with also the people that are helping you to achieve that success. Specifically for Rhino, I will give the example. we've been very fortunate to have a very, very strong partnership with Halliburton from the get-go. They help us to make 3 discoveries in a row, and we hope to keep going doing this, right? We work with also the drilling organization. Recently with Manuel, it's a fantastic partnership. It's good to work with people that are like-minded. But because we are also, specifically for NOL, a small company, it's like you work together and you join forces towards the same vision. But you need to have resilience, because otherwise sometimes it is difficult. There are tough times, but because you're small or medium size, you have also overheads that is allowing you to stay longer, right? The intent of being lean allows you actually to survive that and then to grow on it over time at the right pace. But because you are lean, you can move fast, much faster. And that's, I believe, what you're saying also, that big companies like, I want to give the bad names, but big companies like big IOCs will take their time. And big companies also sometimes come with the mind that they can bend a government or a authorities to what they want. But again, if you think about our vision that is approaching it all the way around, which is you work as a partner from the get-go, then in that case, you are able to progress and have that. But it takes partnership, but it also takes resilience.
Okay, thank you. Apologies for that background noise. Okay, a successful Nigerian independent making big splash. The acquisition of the ExxonMobil Nigeria Shallow Water JV subsidiary, around 62%, according to Woodmac, of your new volumes are gas. And you already have an established gas business in Nigeria, supplying the domestic market, LPG, from your onshore assets. So aside from the export opportunities with NLNG, how critical is the domestic gas market to delivering value to your portfolio? And what does it take to keep that growing upwards?
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the domestic market is indeed very important to Seplat. At Seplat, we describe gas as the engine of prosperity for Nigeria. And by that, we mean we recognize the role of gas in powering homes, fueling industries, providing a cleaner alternative for transportation and cooking as well. So that's the reason we consider the domestic market very important. And over the years, we've deliberately made significant investments in increasing our gas processing capacity devoted to the domestic market. Starting with our first gas project in Oben, more than 10 years ago, we have proved ourselves as a reliable supplier of gas to the power sector in Nigeria and to a wider variety of customers. And we did not stop at that. We recently delivered 2 more gas projects. One, a new power plant in Sapele, and a bigger project called the Ano project, which we expect to come on stream before the end of the year. So taking in total, we've developed over 800 million scope of gas processing capacity onshore that's devoted to the domestic market. And we take that market very seriously. But the domestic market is not just pipeline gas only. It is also LPG and CNG. And talking about LPG, that is where the offshore assets we acquired from Exxon now come into play. So since taking over that asset, we've made an important strategic decision, which is to direct the LPG produced in one of the plants called Bonny River Terminal that was previously exported. We made a decision to direct that butane into the domestic market. And starting in August, we are now delivering large volumes of LPG into the domestic market. So when you add that volume to the LPG volumes that come from the 2 other plants that we run onshore, we are developing ourselves into one of the leading suppliers of LPG into the domestic market. And LPG is important because of the role it plays in displacing biomass, kerosene, and other forms of more polluting fuels for cooking. So we understand the importance to health and to the quality of life of people. So that's why we are quite proud about that decision to direct those LPG into the domestic market. And finally, we recognize that not all gas customers or potential customers are connected to the existing gas pipeline network. As a result, we made a decision to invest in a CNG project, which will come on stream by next year, to give us the opportunity to also deliver gas to customers who are not connected to the existing gas pipeline infrastructure. So as Seplat, our approach to the domestic market is comprehensive, looking at the different gas products and ensuring that we are reaching the wide variety of customers. So we have built out the processing capacity, we have the reserves. Our focus now is continuing to develop that market and make sure we are providing more support to the domestic market.
Thank you. And I think the LPG point is really relevant. When we're talking gas markets, sometimes we overlook it. LPG, a key part to play. Can I just check with the audience? Can you hear us okay with this background noise? And maybe with the organisers, anything that can be done to reduce that? It is pretty loud here on stage. So we're gonna soldier on, but hopefully it will improve. Jerome, small and mid caps here. We've got a super major, a key LNG export player in Africa for decades, Total Energies. What is exciting Total Energies right now with gas market opportunities here, including the potential for LNG imports into Africa and the creation of gas markets through LNG in Africa?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm very happy to be here with you today. I'm very excited to share our views, insights about how to develop domestic gas market in Africa. And of course, very often when we talk about domestic gas market, we think about upstream gas production or associated gas with upstream oil production. I would like maybe to address this topic from a different point of view and see how strategic importation of LNG can meet this objective. So, of course, maybe you need a study case just to show that it can work elsewhere in the world and see how it can be replicated in Africa. So to illustrate this approach, let me share with you a success case, which is Dominican Republic. So we're going to cross the Atlantic Ocean. We will go back maybe in the early 2000s. And basically, this small Caribbean country managed to establish a domestic gas market based entirely on LNG import. And it was anchored in power generation. The key, when we talk about this success case, the key actor was AES Corporation, a US-based energy company. So, with the support of our company, they managed to develop an LNG import terminal, and they managed to expand the business beyond the original demand. So if you look at the key success factors, maybe we can sum it up as 4 key success factors. First, anchoring LNG demand in power generation. AES has a clear view that they need to secure a stable and sizable demand for LNG import. And to achieve that, they've converted existing plants running with heavy fuel to natural gas. And on top of that, they managed to build additional gas power plants next to the LNG import terminal, so that they managed to get a critical size to justify LNG imports. What is very interesting in this story is that originally the anchored demand was for power generation, but later on they managed to expand the business, and then the terminal today is used for small-scale solutions. Second very important critical factor, success factor, is a competent, a committed and capable project developer. AES was not just any investor. It was a company with a deep expertise in power generation, project management, and they had the financial strength to navigate the early challenges of the project. can tell you that the very, very first years were financially tough, but they were prepared for that, and they managed to travel this journey. Third point, a strategic partnership with experienced LNG supplier. AES wanted to have strategic partnership with experienced LNG suppliers because they were not that familiar with LNG business. And we played a key role in the LNG supply based on our expertise, our knowledge, and of course our portfolio, because we have a global portfolio. And we offered the conditions for AES to kickstart the domestic gas market, and of course later on to expand this business beyond in the region. Last point is government support. The role of the government was crucial. First, they offered the possibility for IPPs to enter into this business. And secondly, they offered guarantees and fiscal incentive to make the project bankable. So we can clearly see, based on this example, that we can develop domestic gas market based on LNG importation. And LNG importation can be a powerful tool to achieve such a role. And we are very optimistic in Africa because we think that this is fully replicable. Why? Because we see many countries still heavily reliant on coal and diesel for power generation. And we also see an increase in power demand in the coming years, justifying LNG imports.
Thank you. And you know, I like that opportunity to bring in examples from outside Africa because I think they're going to be very relevant. Manuel, thank you for being patient. Look, Angola is on a bit of a roll in terms of upstream FIDs, pretty oil focused, of course, although you have been an LNG exporter for a long time. But what are the opportunities beyond exports? Gas into the domestic market or gas through pipe into neighboring markets, for example. Can gas play a bigger role in Angola?
Thank you, Gami. It's a great pleasure being here in this panel, having these discussions about the role of gas into the domestic market, especially the Angolan market. Indeed, yes, gas is very important because it helps the country develop its industry, job creation, as well as get some additional revenue so we can diversify our economy. In Angola's example, we have built sufficient infrastructure to start with. Some of those Jerome just gave us an example. We have in Angola more than 1,000 kilometers of pipeline built already, collecting gas, bringing onshore to an LNG facilities. In addition to that, we have built a processing and distribution unit onshore, which is powering a 1.2 gigawatts power plant for the national grid. And we are also building a fertilizer plant. This is all examples that the gas can bring a game changer in terms of impact for internal market and for the benefits not only for the country itself, and gives us a big opportunity for exports. And we're doing that. So we have exporting gas for DRC, for Namibia, taking advantage of those infrastructures already in place. It is also important for us to continue building that collaboration internally so we can develop the market further down. And we have the ambition to have an LPG coverage of 85% of the country by 2027. This means that we are right now heavily investing and continue building LPG infrastructure. So that's an opportunity for investments. Right now we are producing more than 500,000 tons, metric tons and will get up to 7,050 by 2027. Those are all opportunities for market growth in our country and improving the living standards of the Angolans. So we see the gas not as a charity, as a business opportunity as well. Additional improvement in the regulatory regime. So the gas pricing should cover the cost of the investments. So we can secure the return on investments from the players in the market. So those are the key areas that we are right now working in improving. As well, we are building right now a virtual pipeline because we have the gas sources concentrated north of the country, and we have big opportunities to develop the mining sectors, which is stranded south of Angola. So it's in a range of 1,000 kilometers. We are just right now carrying an industrial engineering study so we can see what are the options, and most of the service companies, engineer companies are welcome to participate and take this opportunity just for us to get more of the export opportunities into local market and securing the investments.
Yeah, look, and I think at the end you make that point about the regulation, the policy, the fiscal terms. Not always been designed for gas. Have probably been pretty oily historically, and may need redesigning to ensure gas flows. Matthias, I talked about attitude towards risk. Now, when we look at African gas markets, there is risk in offtake, in affordability, regulation, transparency, repatriation of profit. It's a long list. How do you successfully de-risk a gas project in an emerging market?
You just take the risk. In reality, I mean, you can try to de-risk it, but the risk will continue to be there. If we assume that with a magic wand, suddenly all the risks will disappear and we want a fully de-risked project, it's not going to happen.
But how do you raise capital without
So coming down to how do you raise capital? You raise capital, I'll give you the example of what we did and how we raised $1.7 billion on a project that had a turnkey PCIC contract with a very reputable contractor. So the construction risk was removed. Offtakes with multiple local domestic buyers of very high credit quality. So the offtake was agreed, was covered. And then obviously an operating team that knows how to run assets. But you cannot cover the geopolitical risk. You cannot cover wars. You cannot cover changes of government. So the most important part for us when we go into any new country is the stability of the fiscal terms. Example is Egypt. Egypt has had a market of 100 years. And yes, there are problems with payment. And yes, there are problems doing business in Egypt. But they never changed the terms. And we talk about risks, and we think that it's risky to do business in Africa. Try to do business in the UK sector of the North Sea.
100% agree.
Every year, there's a new tax system, but nobody talks about the risks because it's the UK.
Yeah.
And it's fine. And everybody says, well, it's risky to do business in Angola or Ghana or Equatorial Guinea or, Senegal or Mauritania. Well, actually, people are taking that risk without any cover, and nobody talks about it. So it is a risky business, and you have to take those risks. For me, the most important part is how you navigate all the issues that a company and a project and a country is faced, because we will always have changes. When I started the business in 2006, we invested $1 million to buy the only Greek producing asset. There was nothing else. That 1 million has turned into what is today a $2.5 billion company with 180,000 barrels a day. We took all the risks that you can imagine. 2016, we went deep water offshore in Israel. And at the time, we were a very small company and we did not have deep water capabilities. We took a big risk. Was it fully de-risked? No, it wasn't. So, you know, I used to play basketball when I was younger, and the motto was, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So take the risk, take the shot, and it may not work. And there are multiple examples of companies that didn't make it, but there are a lot that made it. So basically, take the risk.
I would happily talk about the UK and risk for a long time, but let's not go there right now. Okay, Chugwa, I want to come back to you because part of de-risking projects, I mean, there is work that you can do, is anchor customers. So is signing up anchor customers so you have a foundation for revenue and supporting cash flow. How have you succeeded in signing up those anchor customers? And does it need government guarantees, government backing to get it done, or is there enough commerciality in the market to ensure that can happen alone?
So you're right. Every new major gas project will require a viable anchor customer to make it work. And using the example of Seplat several years ago, when we started our investments into gas projects, starting with our plant in Oben, we required a viable anchor customer to unlock that project. And that came in the form of Azura power plant, which some of you in the room will know. So that gave us the launching pad to make that project happen. But we've now gone beyond that to delivering gas to a total of 5 power plants in Nigeria from our onshore assets. But talking more broadly, again in Africa, with the low level of power supply into many of the countries, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, it is vital, and gas can play an important role in bridging that electricity gap. But for that to happen, the power markets in the different countries have to work. And that is where government has a role to play. And it's important that we look at gas to power, not at different elements, but as a value chain. And except it works as a value chain from the molecules at the wellhead to electrons in homes and businesses, it is important that different elements work. And what I mean by that is this. Infrastructure to transmit and distribute that power from the power plants need to be in place. And then the electricity market itself need to have the right fundamentals in terms of pricing and other commercial terms. And where they don't exist on their own, there's a role for government to enable that so that viable offtake opportunities can be created. Because without that, you're not going to get funding to invest in a new gas project if the off-takers don't present a viable proposition. So very important across Africa that we pay attention to the fundamentals of the electricity market. That's what we need to unlock gas projects across the continent.
Yeah, and I guess that's work that oil and gas companies can't do on their own. They're going to need support through the value chain. Manuel, a topic we've not mentioned, I don't think the word has been mentioned yet, but we have to talk about it, is flaring.
Yeah.
Not only the environmental costs of that, but also this is just money going up into the atmosphere. What steps is Sonangol taking to not simply reduce flaring, but monetize that gas into a commercial opportunity, and other countries' operators also relevant?
As I mentioned, we have continued building infrastructures. For those mature fields that we have, we are building additional pipeline network that will collect the gas from those infrastructures, bringing onshore so we can either through LNG or natural gas power for the benefits of power generation, or to feed other industries such as the fertilizer plant that we just built on the way, as well as for the LPG. So we still have also a railway corridor we call Lobito Corridor that moves the gas from east, so from west to east country. It's more than 1,000 kilometers. It's go all the way down to the Zambian border, and that's a big opportunity to monetize even gas further along the continent. We also promoting special equipment repairs on the old infrastructures offshore, just to capture those emissions, reducing the flare, substituting with the gas-powered turbines, so we can, instead of flaring, just monetize that gas and to the benefits of the production and have more revenues for the country. So those are kind of the options we still have available to us, doing some of those implications. And we also using another more repressive, if you will, method, which is, not allowing by the law. It's prohibit gas flaring. You have to have special permissions for that and justify so we could flare. And the Angola Energy, which is a 5.2 million tons per annum plant, is the recipe for the flaring gas. It's already in stream, and we have the pipeline network sufficient to collect those gas.
Great, thank you. Very positive. Jerome talks about Dominican Republic, but there's also an example closer to home, Senegal, where the first sub-Saharan African country to become an LNG importer. Total Energies supplied the very first cargoes. How was that made possible? Because most people probably wasn't on their radar that we were going to get African countries importing LNG.
I think your question is just about affordability of gas and somehow affordability of LNG for domestic gas market. So thank you very much for mentioning this very recent success story. It's true that in 2025 Total Energies delivered the very first LNG cargoes to Senelec. So Senelec being the national electricity company in Senegal. So far we have delivered 3 cargoes, and we expect many more to be delivered in the coming years, thanks to this partnership. And one of the questions we may ask ourselves is, why has Senelec decided to shift from heavy oil to LNG for power generation? Just because of price. LNG is just a cheaper option than heavy oil. This is just the main reason is that. So it's very important, because very often you're right when we talk about affordability, when you talk about gas and affordability in Africa, many people think that this is not affordable, and just like Senelec, we should think differently. People should think, what is the cost of the alternative fuel, if any? And by doing that, people can realize that LNG can be a cheaper or an affordable solution. We are, in addition to this case, we are also working elsewhere in Africa. We are developing Mozambique LNG north of Mozambique, but we are also developing south of Mozambique Matola LNG to power project. So this is a LNG import terminal with a gas power station. And obviously this is for Southern Africa region, and starting with the South Africa market. And we are convinced that we can propose affordable energy for both gas users and power consumers. So this is what can be achieved even in Africa. We talked about a success case in America, and we can have other success cases in Africa.
Well, it also neatly addresses the question of affordability. So if you can import LNG, displace diesel, gas is affordable.
Exactly.
And of course, we would expect that spot gas prices are likely to come down in the next few years as much more LNG comes into the market, so potentially opening up new demand in Africa. Gilles, going to stick with LNG. Total is talking about what we'd call sort of conventional LNG, but there is also small scale LNG, much more nimble, more innovative, where you can take very local production, liquefy, truck, get it into markets very quickly. Do you see a growth in that sector?
Absolutely. We are very fortunate and unfortunate at the same time. So it's interesting what I'm about to say. We are very fortunate to work actually onshore South Africa. We have a very significant footprint over there. It's quite some years now that we are progressing from an exploration standpoint, these acreages that we have onshore. And we believe there is actually quite some gas potential onshore South Africa. There is, I think, in the conference here, CEO of Energias. They are the only one that have actually a production right onshore South Africa, but we are actually surrounding them with our acreages. And as you know, the geology never ends at an artificial boundary. So we believe that actually the geology is quite promising everywhere there. But we are not under the vision of a big gas development. And it goes again back to what Matteo said at the beginning. Sometimes you need to have the right resources for the right size company. There are very few companies that can deal with the type of resources that is seen onshore South Africa. It's small in quantities, but it is dispatched here and there. What you need to do, then you need to adapt to the resource and essentially go to the small scale type LNG. And then the vision is essentially, if you were to close your eyes, right? You see the beautiful fields onshore South Africa in the Free State. And then you see the farmlands. All the farmers have these beautiful farm properties. And they are farming there. They are producing their millies over there. Then you close your eyes, and Rhino is coming in, drilling wells, very simple wells.
Yeah.
You can do that because it's low pressure thing. You can do actually air drilling over there. Quite exotic approach, right? We are not clearly speaking companies, big drilling, expensive drilling, big equipment, very light equipment. Actually, very much the size of what the farmers are tuned to see in their field. Farmers are actually even using caterpillars that are bigger than what we're using, or thinking of using and deploying. Then you close your eyes, we drill there, that gas comes to surface. Now the gas is there. In South Africa, they have this rolling load shedding. You have the gas, there are many ways that you can deal with that gas. The simplest one, obviously, for sure, you can just burn it into a genie and sell it to the electricity, sell it to the grid. You actually contribute to bring clean energy, much cleaner than coal for that matter, to the South African mix. But if you were really to close your eyes and see a circular economy, now you have farmers that are plowing their field with their trucks that are heavy equipment. Then you have actually small scale energy that is produced there. And then the farmer can come directly here and then refuel at the gas station, which is actually a gas station for that matter here, which is coming from underground, just below their feet. It's a very short logistical exercise, and then it's a very circular because everything stays there. There are many ways of doing it, but then the beauty is because that resources is of small quantities but dispatched in a lot of places. Once you finish to exhaust that location and you abandon your well with a proper abandonment procedure, then actually you can take this kind of equipment and then move it to the next 20 kilometers away, and then you replicate. Because the equipment is actually the size of a pardon me, I'm using my African slang here, but it's the size of a bakkie, which is a pickup truck for those that do not know what it is. But it's easily movable. And then all in that matter, exactly, right resource for the right company. Big IOCs, they might try to do it, but they will suffer for the execution or something like that. Small companies that are nimble or medium-sized companies that are willing to do that game will be actually thriving in doing. So we are very fortunate actually to have these acreages. We are progressing them, and we are very excited to potentially start drilling these assets very soon. And hopefully then we can actually contribute to the energy mix onshore South Africa.
Yeah. Those small-scale LNG projects, if you've ever visited them, I've been a few in China where they have the coal bed methane mines and the small scale. They are tiny. They are so small. It's kind of, you get there and you think, is that it?
Yes.
And yet they are really, really practical for getting LNG into trucks, tractors, etc.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. We're almost out of time, but that means it must be time for the quick-fire question round, which I'm going to start with you, Manuel, because then we'll just work back to Matthias this way. Right, so it's AW 2028. So we're 3 years in the future. What market, what technology, what regulatory improvement, what innovation are we all going to be talking about as the trailblazer for African gas market development? And it can be Sonangol if you want, but that's just going to be the easy option.
Okay. I think the market will adjust itself. So we all understand that the gas is the transition fuel. Everybody is on board. People are thinking and working together. We'll have more collaboration. Technology will have a better fire products, so be more efficient. And I think the price will be also more affordable for the people. So we'll be more inclusive. We'll reduce the impact on people's lives will be tremendous. In Africa, special, we'll be able to avoid some of the premature death that we see in the rural areas.
Okay, so market development and affordability.
Yeah, I think.
Jerome, quick fire round, keep it short.
So in 3 years' time, okay.
3 to 5, we'll be generous.
3 to 5, okay. No, but definitely we are really working hard to develop LNG to power projects everywhere in the world, but especially in Africa, and we would be very happy to see those projects coming on stream, crossing the line, and obviously it would be very beneficial for the economy in Africa, and we expect a big move on that side in the coming weeks, months, to hope having something in 3 or 4 years' time.
Okay, so even quicker. Okay.
Yeah, so
single improvement, single breakthrough.
So in the case of Nigeria, what can make a significant improvement in the 3 to 5 year time period will be a successful implementation of the ongoing power sector reforms. So if we address pricing, metering, additional infrastructure development to enable transmission and distribution, what you will see is a lot of investment into power generation, and as a result, greater development of gas for the domestic market. So that will be able to connect the value chain, as I said earlier, and you will unlock additional power projects that will improve supply of power to homes and industries in Nigeria.
Brilliant, thank you. Gilles, same for you.
Well, I will speak for South Africa, all right, onshore South Africa. I strongly believe that there is a potential there. And when you see a country that is having rolling load shedding, and essentially you know that your population is suffering, you need to look at around what is around available to you. How can you fix something? You have a resource, make that resource available. Make that resource available, but not only that, the resource is actually a greener resource than anything else. So you need to be pragmatic and then adjust the regulation to allow people that want to take the risk on something that is not trivial, right? It's exotic type of development. You need to find the right player to do that. But when you have the right player for doing this, adjust the regulation and allow them to play and take the risk for you, but then it is going to help you to avoid people suffering because of actually energy inequality.
Thank you for that. Matthias, final word to you.
So it's 2030?
It could be 2030.
30. We are celebrating that there is not a single person that died in the continent from burning wood. We're celebrating domestic gas developments that bring gas to power and fuel industries. And we're celebrating Energian delivering first gas from an FPSO development in the coast of West Africa.
Well, cheers to all three of those, but I think particularly that point about reducing, air pollution from cooking fuels. I guess it's such a critical topic. And look, I'm sorry we had to compete with the show next door, but hopefully we got a message to us, really important message. I heard a lot about companies willing to take risk, find the right resource for the right company, and get moving. And I think we'll take that away as a key message. So to my panelists and to our very patient audience, thank you all very much.